Hey guys, so today I've got some really good stories for you guys. All three of these are up there with some of the creepiest and scariest stories I've ever come across, and each one gets worse in its own way. If you're into that kind of thing, you're definitely going to want to stick around for all of them. And if you end up enjoying the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and all that. You already know the deal. Thank you. It was late 90s, I think 98 or early 99, in this small town in New York. Most evenings I'd just meet up with the same 2 or 3 guys I knew since high school. We didn't do anything special, just walked around, sometimes grabbed cheap food, sometimes just walked because there wasn't much else. There was this one stretch we always ended up on, like without even planning it. A residential road, older houses. Some had those low porches with peeling paint. Some had big yards with uneven grass. It wasn't creepy by itself, I want to make that clear. It was just like people stayed inside more on that street. You'd maybe see one porch light on, maybe a TV flickering through a window, but not much movement. And then there was that house. It wasn't like a haunted-looking place, a single-story house. Set back a bit more than the others, with a driveway and a tree that leaned a little too close to the roof. The siding looked older, like it hadn't been replaced in a long time, and the windows always seemed, I don't know, darker than they should be, just covered or something. Curtains, but heavy ones. The first time we really paid attention to it was because of the smell. That's what stuck with me more than anything, honestly. We were walking past like usual, talking about some girl one of the guys liked, and then it just hit us like it crept in. I thought something dead in the bushes. It was stronger than that. I remember one of my friends, he just stopped and went, "What the hell is that?" And we all kind of slowed down. It was bad. Like not just unpleasant, like it made you not want to breathe through your nose at all. Thick, almost. I don't know how to describe smells, but it had that sweet but rotten thing, which I didn't really understand at the time. We didn't go up to the house, kept walking. We joked about it a little after we got further down. Like someone forgot to take out the trash for a month or whatever, but even then it didn't feel like a normal smell. We didn't do anything about it. That's the part that kind of bothers me now, but also, what were we supposed to do? It's not like we thought anything serious was going on. And the thing is, it didn't go away right away. Over the next few days, not every day, but a couple times when we passed there again, you could still catch it. Sometimes lighter, sometimes strong again. It depended on the wind, I guess, or the weather, because I remember one evening it had rained earlier and it was worse, like it got pushed down or something. We started crossing the street a bit before getting near that house. We never saw anyone going in or out. That's another thing. I didn't even know for sure who lived there at that point. I think one of the guys said there was some older guy, lived alone, kept to himself, but it wasn't like we saw him. No car in the driveway most times either. Or if there was, I just didn't notice, which is possible because I wasn't really paying attention like that. At some point, a week or so after we first noticed the smell, there were police cars out front. You knew something happened. We didn't see it happen, like we didn't watch them go in or anything like that. It was more like we walked by during the day, and there they were, cars and one of those vans. There were a couple people standing outside like neighbors. We didn't go up and ask. I mean, we were curious, obviously, but it felt not our place. We just slowed down, looked, and kept going. Later that day, or maybe the next, it started getting around town. Small place, so news travels fast even if it's not official. They said a woman had been found inside, deceased. And then more details started coming in bits, not all at once, and not always matching exactly depending on who you asked. But the general thing was that she had been there for days, inside that house. And the man who lived there, he didn't report it. I didn't really get it. Like, how does that even happen? And the guy I worked with said stuff like he just kept her there, which didn't make sense to me, still doesn't. Apparently she was his girlfriend or partner, something like that. Not someone random. And for whatever reason, after she passed, he didn't call anyone, didn't tell anyone, just stayed there with her. It made me feel sick thinking back on it, like we had been walking past that, joking about it, not understanding what we were actually smelling. I think all of us had that same moment separately because when I saw my friends again, we didn't even joke about it this time. We just kind of talked around it. The man got arrested, that much I know for sure. I don't know the exact charges or what came out later because I didn't follow it closely after a point. It was one of those things where the more you hear, the worse it gets, and I just didn't want to keep adding details in my head. Some people said he was in shock, some said he was unstable even before, some said worse things that I don't know if they were true. After that, the house just sat there. No one moved in right away. I think it stayed empty for years. The yard got worse, grass uneven, that tree looking even more like it was leaning in on the place. They boarded up windows at some point. We stopped walking that route as much for a while, like you couldn't unknow what happened there. Even if it looked the same, it didn't feel the same. Sometimes we'd still pass by, but quicker, and no one ever mentioned the smell again. Years went by. I moved out, got a different job, saw those friends less often. Life kind of spreads people out whether you want it to or not. But every now and then, I'd still be back in that area, visiting family or whatever, and that street would come up again without me planning it. And one night, this was a few years after everything, I was walking with one of those same friends, just one this time, heading back from a bar that wasn't too far off. It wasn't late, but it was dark enough that most houses had lights off. We ended up on that street again, like muscle memory. And as soon as I realized where we were, I felt that same thing I used to, like a small tightening in my chest. The house was still there, looked mostly the same, maybe a little worse. We were talking about something else, and then I glanced over at it, just quick, like you do when you pass something you recognize. And I saw something standing near the side of the door. I didn't understand it, and I looked again, trying to make sense of it. And it didn't fix itself the second time I looked, which is what I expected. Usually when you think you see something weird at night, you look again and it turns into a shadow or a trash can or just nothing. That's what I was waiting for, like for my brain to correct it. But it didn't. It was a body. That's the only way I can say it without making it sound like I'm exaggerating, because I'm not trying to do that. It was shaped like a person, standing upright, close to the wall near the door. What threw me off immediately wasn't just that it was there, it was that there was no head. I know how that sounds, I do, and even while I was looking at it, I remember thinking, like, that's not possible. But I didn't have a better explanation in that moment. My friend took like 2 more steps ahead of me, and then turned slightly like, "What are you doing?" But I wasn't even looking at him. I was still looking at that spot, trying to see if maybe the angle was weird, like maybe the head was just blending into the dark or behind the door frame or something like that. But then it wasn't there. It was just gone. One second it was there, next second it wasn't. And I know people say that kind of thing all the time, like stuff disappearing, but I don't mean it in a weird way. It was more like when your eyes adjust and something you thought you saw just isn't there anymore. Except this didn't feel like that, because I had already focused on it. I must have made some kind of sound, because my friend asked me what was wrong. I don't remember what I said first. I think I said, "Did you see that?" which is such a useless thing to say, because of course he didn't. He just looked at me confused, then looked at the house, then back at me like I was messing with him. I told him what I saw, like there was someone there, by the door, like right there. And I pointed, even though there was nothing there anymore. He was saying, "What are you talking about?" And I could tell he was getting uncomfortable because of how I was acting. Then I said it like I just said it didn't have a head, and as soon as I said that out loud, it sounded ridiculous, like something you'd say as a joke. But I wasn't joking, and I think he could tell because I wasn't laughing or anything. He looked again at the house like checking, and then he just said, "There's nothing there, man." And I knew that. I could see that. It was just the door, the wall, that stupid tree shadow cutting across part of it. Normal. I remember feeling this kind of pressure in my chest again, stronger than before, like I needed to get away from there for no clear reason I could explain. I told him we should just go. Just let's go, but faster than usual. He didn't want to make a big deal out of nothing, But then he saw my face, I guess, and just nodded. We both started walking quicker. I kept looking back. I did it like 3 or 4 times in a row. Then at some point, we did start running. It felt stupid even while we were doing it, like what are we running from? But neither of us said that. We just kept going until we were a couple streets over and the house wasn't even in sight anymore. We stopped after that, both kind of out of breath, and he asked me again what exactly I saw. This time I explained it a bit more clearly, or tried to. I told him where it was standing, how tall it looked, how it didn't move. I didn't add anything extra. I didn't try to make it sound worse than it was because it was already weird enough. He kept saying it was a shadow or something behind the glass, but I told him it wasn't in the window, it was outside, like right next to the door. And I'm sure of that part. I'm not saying I'm sure of what it was, but I'm sure of where I saw it. We went back and forth like that for a bit, not arguing, just trying to make it make sense. Eventually, he said, "You just saw something weird for a second," which I guess is the most reasonable thing to say. But I didn't feel like that was it. After that night, I avoided that street. I never saw anything like that again. Not there, not anywhere else, nothing even close. And I don't have a history of seeing things or imagining stuff like that. I don't believe in ghosts either, or at least I didn't, and I still don't in the way people usually mean it. If I believed in that kind of thing, I could just go, okay, that's what it was and move on. But I don't have anything to put it under. It just sits there as something I saw once that I can't explain. I've thought about it a lot over the years, tried to break it down logically. That doesn't really work when I replay it because I looked directly at it the second time. I've also thought it was something with my eyes, like a trick of light or my brain filling in something wrong. That's probably the closest explanation I can accept, even if it doesn't fully sit right. Because the alternative explanations are worse, and also, I just don't buy into them. The thing is, I don't connect it to what happened in that house. Not directly. I know it sounds like it should be connected, like that's the obvious conclusion, but to me it just feels like 2 separate things that happened in the same place. My friend still says he didn't see anything that night. Every time it comes up, he just repeats the same thing, that I must have seen a shadow or something, and my brain ran with it. And I don't blame him for thinking that. If he told me the same story, I'd probably say the same thing. I just know what I saw, or at least what I think I saw. And I also know that I don't understand it, and I'm kind of okay with that now. I don't need it to be something specific. I don't want it to be something specific. This happened a few years ago. I was already an adult, but I hadn't moved out yet because of money and just life stuff. My brother was a couple years older than me, and he was the one who mostly handled selling things online, like old phones, random electronics, that kind of thing. He was always flipping stuff. We lived in a suburban area. The houses were kind of close together, but not like apartments, more like each had a small yard and a driveway. Our house had this side door near the garage that we barely used. It led into this small laundry area before going into the kitchen. I'm mentioning that now because it matters later. I didn't think about it at the time. Anyway, my brother decided to sell his old laptop, something he had used for a few years. I remember he cleaned it, wiped everything, took pictures, posted it online. Within like a day or two, someone messaged him saying they wanted to buy it. That part wasn't weird. People came over sometimes to pick stuff up. It wasn't unusual for us. The guy came in the afternoon. I had just woken up late. I wasn't working that day, and I was still kind of in that slow, groggy mood. I didn't even plan to go downstairs at first, but I heard voices, so I just came down to see what was going on. The guy was already inside when I got there. That was normal too. My brother usually just let people in instead of making them stand outside. But the second I saw him, I don't know, something just felt slightly off, like when someone talks a little too carefully, or like they're copying how people normally talk. He was in his 30s, I think. He didn't look old. He was kind of average looking, like nothing stood out except the way he talked. He kept pausing in the middle of sentences and then restarting them, like he'd say, yeah, I was looking for something like this because, yeah, stuff like that. It wasn't nervous, but off rhythm. My brother didn't seem bothered at all. He was just showing him the laptop, turning it on, explaining specs or whatever. I wasn't really paying attention to that part. The guy noticed me pretty quickly though, like right away. He looked at me longer, not like staring aggressively, just longer than normal. Then he said hi in this kind of flat tone. I said hi back and just stood there. Then I went into the kitchen and pretended to be busy. I remember opening the fridge and not even taking anything out. I just didn't feel like standing there. I could still hear them talking, and after a few minutes, the guy bought the laptop. It was quick, no bargaining or anything, which I remember thinking was a little unusual. He left. My brother was happy he sold it. I didn't really think about the guy again. I probably would have completely forgotten about him if he hadn't come back. It was like 3 days later, or 4, something like that. It was evening this time. There was a knock on the door, and my brother answered it. I didn't go, but I heard the voice and recognized it immediately. It was that same guy. He said there was something wrong with the laptop screen, like it was flickering. The way he explained it was kind of messy, like he couldn't fully describe the problem. My brother didn't seem annoyed, he just told him to come in so he could check it. I went into the living room, but I didn't get too close. I stayed kind of near the hallway. The guy had the laptop with him and handed it over. My brother sat down and started checking it, turning it on, plugging it in, all that. The guy didn't sit. That's something I remember. He just stood there, shifting his weight, looking around the house. Not in a curious way like nice place, it's like scanning. His eyes would land on things and stay there a little too long, then move on. At some point, he noticed me again. I wish I could explain it better, but it felt like he had been aware of me the whole time, even when he wasn't looking directly. He turned and started talking to me, asking random things, like if I lived there, what I did, stuff like that. Normal questions, but the way he asked them felt, I don't know, like he wasn't really interested in the answers. I answered a couple things just to be polite, but I kept it short. Then he took a step closer, just like slowly drifting in my direction while still talking. That's when I decided to leave. My room was upstairs, at the end of the hallway. I went up there and left the door open. I could still hear my brother downstairs messing with the laptop, saying stuff like, I don't see anything wrong with it, and asking the guy to explain again. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I thought it was my brother, but it didn't sound like him. It was slower, like one step, then a pause, then another. The footsteps came all the way up, then they stopped right outside my door. I didn't close it fully, which I regret now. The door moved a little, like it got pushed just enough to open more, and then he was there, like right in the doorway. He didn't come all the way in, he just leaned slightly, like half his body visible, and said, "Oh, you're up here." Like he didn't already know where I went. I remember saying yeah, and then immediately pretending to look at my phone, like I was busy. He started talking again, same kind of questions, but now it felt different. More directed, like he was trying to keep me there. I gave short answers again, barely looking at him. My heart was beating really fast, but I didn't want to show it. I don't even know why, it's just how I reacted. I kept hoping my brother would call him back downstairs or something. After a minute, which felt way longer, my brother actually did call out, asking him something about the charger. The guy paused, looked at me for a second longer, then said, "I'll come back," like casually. Then he walked away. I closed my door after that. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open and close. My brother came upstairs after that and told me he couldn't find anything wrong with the laptop. It worked perfectly fine. No flickering, nothing. The guy had just taken it back and left without arguing. We both thought it was weird. That guy was odd. That's it. That's all it felt like at the time. About a week later, I was home alone. My brother was out, my parents were out too. It was during the day, not night, which is why this part still messes with me. I was in the living room and I heard, sounded like a door opening. It was softer, like a lighter door. I got up and checked the front door first, then the back door. Also locked. I almost went back to the couch, but something made me check the side door, the one near the garage. It was open. I never used that door. None of us really did. I stepped closer and looked outside. There was no one there. The driveway was empty, nothing moving. I closed the door and locked it. Even though I didn't see anyone, it didn't feel like no one had been there. I didn't tell anyone. It wasn't like I was hiding it. I just didn't feel like explaining it when I didn't even know what it was. I remember when my brother got home later that day, I thought about bringing it up, but then he started talking about something else and it just kind of passed. And then it felt dumb to go back to it. But I kept thinking about it that night. It wouldn't fully leave. I even went and checked the side door again before going to bed, just to make sure it was locked. It was. I pulled on it again, same as before, just to feel it hold. I don't do that kind of thing like double-checking stuff, but I did that night. The next couple days, I kind of forced myself to let it go. I told myself one of us used that door earlier and didn't remember, or it didn't latch or something. Houses do weird things sometimes. The neighbors came over. It was during the evening. We were all home this time. My mom answered the door, and I could hear voices that sounded like they weren't just stopping by to talk. There was this tone to it, like they were trying to explain something carefully. Our neighbors lived right next to us, obviously, but we weren't super close. Just the usual wave when you see them outside, small talk if it happens. They were a couple, a bit older than my parents. Nice people, just not involved in our lives. My mom called for us to come to the living room. When I got there, they were both standing kind of close together, and the woman had her phone in her hand. She looked nervous, like she didn't want to show what she was about to show, but also felt like she had to. She said, like, "We didn't know if we should bring this up, but we think you need to see it." I didn't understand what she meant at all. None of us did. My brother even laughed, like thinking it was going to be something minor. And it wasn't. She opened something on her phone and turned it toward us. It was security footage from their house. The angle showed part of their backyard and a side view of our house. You could see our windows from it, including mine. Nothing was happening in the video. It was nighttime footage, kind of grainy, with that slight green tint. Then she skipped forward a bit, and then you could see him. A person, standing near the side of our house, not moving much at first, just there. Why would someone just be standing there like that? He was wearing something over his face, like covered, like a mask. You couldn't see anything, no features at all. I felt my stomach drop, like physically. I don't even remember breathing for a second. She said this wasn't just one night. She scrolled through more clips. Different timestamps, different nights. At least 5 days, she said. 5 separate nights where the same person came and stood in that exact area. Sometimes he would just stand there for a long time. Other times he would move closer to the house, like right up near the wall. In one clip, he crouched down near the side door. In another clip, he was right outside my window. I sat down. My brother was leaning forward, staring at the phone. My parents looked completely confused at first, then it changed into something else, like it was catching up to them. The neighbor kept talking, explaining that they only noticed because they were reviewing footage after something unrelated. At first they thought it was someone sneaking around the neighborhood, but then they realized it kept happening in the same spot. Our house. And then she showed one more clip. This one was longer. The man was standing there for what she said was over an hour. Just there, occasionally shifting, looking up at the window, my window. I didn't want to say it, but I already knew. Before anyone asked, I said, "I think I've seen him." Everyone looked at me. I said, "The guy who bought the laptop." My brother immediately said it could just be coincidence, like he needed that to be true. We called the police. They looked at the footage, talked, mostly to my brother since he was the one who dealt with the guy. They got whatever details he had, which honestly wasn't much. A name from the listing, maybe a phone number. I don't even remember if it was real. They said they'd look into it, and they did. They told us they couldn't confirm it was the same person who bought the laptop. The footage didn't show a face. The guy hadn't left anything behind, no fingerprints. There wasn't enough. Didn't lead anywhere. It just stopped. The neighbors kept an eye out, but they never saw him again. Knowing what we saw, I can't convince myself it was nothing. I grew up in a place that wasn't exactly middle of nowhere, but it kind of felt like it, if you didn't have a car. We had neighbors, but they weren't close neighbors. More like houses you could see through gaps in trees if you looked long enough. I was still living with my parents, probably like late teens. I don't remember exactly the year, but I know I didn't have my own car yet. That's kind of important because it meant if I wanted to go anywhere, I either had to ask for a ride or just walk. And I walked a lot. It didn't feel weird at the time. You just get used to it when there's not really another option. My parents both worked late some days, and that night was one of those nights. I had already eaten something small. I didn't really have much to do at home. We didn't have a gaming console or a decent computer, just like an old laptop that could barely open anything without freezing. So most nights, if I wanted to actually do something, I'd go over to my friend's place. His house was about a 20-minute walk, a little more depending how fast I went. The first part of the walk was just along the road, but then there was this stretch where you cut through this wooded area. It wasn't like deep forest, but it was enough where once you were in it, you couldn't really see any houses. Sometimes you'd hear stuff moving, but it was usually just animals or wind. I'd walked it so many times I didn't even think about it anymore. That night I remember checking the time a couple times before I left. I texted my friend saying I was coming over, and he just said, "Yeah, come through," like always. Nothing out of the ordinary. So I grabbed my hoodie because it gets colder out there once the sun drops, and just started walking. The first part was normal, cars passing every now and then, someone's dog barking in the distance. I was just kicking a rock for a bit while I walked, just out of boredom, and then I stopped doing that because it was annoying me. When I got to the wooded part, it was darker. That area always got dark faster because of the trees blocking out what little light was left. I could still see fine, but it wasn't bright. The path was familiar though, so I didn't need to think about where I was going. I was like halfway through that stretch when I first heard a car. That was already a little weird because cars didn't usually come down that part unless someone lived nearby or got lost. The road kind of curves around the woods, and there's a small side path that connects, which is where I was walking. So hearing a car that close made me look up. I saw headlights first, kind of cutting through the trees, and then the car itself came into view as it slowed down. It didn't pass me. It slowed, like really slowed, and then stopped not too far ahead of me. I remember thinking they needed directions. I kept walking. I didn't stop, just kept going at the same pace. Then the driver's window rolled down, and this guy leaned over a bit and said, "Hey, you need a ride?" I told him I was good, just walking to my friend's house. I didn't stop walking when I said it, which I think now was kind of me trying to not get stuck in a conversation. Usually people take that as a hint and just drive off, but he didn't. He kind of kept pace with me for a second, like the car slowly moving next to me, and then he stopped again. He said, "It's getting dark, man. I can take you." It wasn't aggressive, not at first, just off. I told him again I was fine, like, "No, really, it's close," and I pointed vaguely ahead even though you couldn't really see anything through the trees. I was hoping he'd just leave. Then he just sat there for a second. The engine was still running, I could hear it, and the headlights were kind of angled weird through the trees behind me. It made everything look off. He opened the car door. I didn't think much of it for like half a second. I thought he was just getting out to ask for directions or something. But when he stepped out, I noticed something that didn't make sense right away. He was wearing, I don't know, like, it was like women's clothes, but not normal ones. Like really revealing stuff. Tight and just wrong for the situation. It wasn't like a joke outfit. It looked intentional. I was staring because I was trying to figure out what I was even looking at. Something was off in a way that wasn't just weird guy offering a ride. I took a step back. He started walking toward me, and he said something again. I don't remember what, but it wasn't about the ride anymore. It was something else. I told him to back off. Like I said it pretty clearly, louder. He didn't stop though. He got closer and reached out, like actually tried to grab my arm. I reacted without thinking. I shoved him back, harder than I expected I would. He stumbled a bit, like he wasn't expecting me to push back at all. For a second we just looked at each other, and I remember noticing his face properly then, like really looking at him. There was something wrong there too, not physically, but just the expression. He didn't try again after that. I think he realized he couldn't just overpower me easily. He just stood there, breathing kind of heavy, and then he turned and got back into his car. I just started walking again. I thought that was it, like he just gave up and left. But then, a little further ahead, I saw headlights again. The headlights were just there, sitting between the trees off to the side of the path where it opened up a little. It wasn't like a proper road, a wider patch where people sometimes pulled over to turn around or dump stuff. I don't know. But the car was angled in a way where it was facing kind of toward the path I was on, like it had been waiting there already, which didn't make sense because I hadn't heard it pass me. I slowed down. I told myself in my head, like, don't slow down, just keep walking, but my legs didn't listen right away. The headlights made it hard to see anything else, so at first I couldn't tell if it was the same car or not. I kind of already knew though. It felt the same, if that makes sense. Same feeling in my chest, like something was off in a way that wasn't just coincidence. I stopped for a second, enough to think. And I was thinking something really dumb, like maybe it's someone else, but the driver's door opened again, same side, same slow way it opened. I turned around. I didn't even wait to see him get out fully. After a few steps, I was basically speed walking. The headlights were still there at first, then they moved, like the car adjusted. I couldn't see him because of the light behind him, but I could tell he was out of the car again. He didn't shout this time. That's what stuck with me later. He didn't call out, didn't say anything, just there. I just started running. My body kind of took over at that point. I didn't hear an engine right away though, which was worse in a way. If I heard the engine, at least I'd know where he was. I got out of the wooded part and back onto the road, and that's when I finally slowed down a bit, because I was out of breath and my legs were starting to feel weird. I turned around again and looked back toward the trees. It was just dark. I kept walking home. A couple cars passed, normal ones, didn't slow down. I kept my head down mostly, just focused on getting back. I finally got to my house. My parents weren't home yet. I remember unlocking the door. I went around and checked the back door too. Looked out the windows, like through the blinds a little, trying to see if there was a car outside or something. I finally turned on the lights and just sat down on the couch. I didn't even go to my room. I just sat there for a while. My heart was still beating kind of fast. I thought about calling my friend to tell him I wasn't coming, but I didn't feel like explaining it. I didn't even know how I'd explain it without it sounding, I don't know. So I just texted him something like, "Not coming tonight," and left it at that. My parents got home later, an hour or two after. I didn't tell them. I didn't even fully understand what had happened myself. It just felt like something I needed to process first. Later, I did end up telling it. My mom got more concerned than my dad did. She didn't like that I was walking through that area alone at night to begin with, which I guess is fair. My dad said we could report it, but since I didn't have a plate number or a good description of the car, it didn't really go anywhere. I think he made a call anyway, just in case. Nothing came of it. I still had to go places, obviously. I couldn't just stop leaving the house, but after that, I stopped cutting through the wooded path. During the day too for a while. I'd take the longer way around on the main road. It just wasn't worth it. The thing is, it was the second time when he was just there again, ahead of me, parked and waiting, like he knew where I'd be. I've tried to make sense of that part a bunch of times, like there was another way around, and he drove ahead, or I just didn't notice him pass me somehow. Some people aren't just weird, there's something else entirely, and you don't really get a second chance to figure that out if you guess wrong.